the attack would be in 3 columns. A column down the river road, a column down the swamp line, and then a column of reserve up the center. And the idea here, because, as I say, Pakenham did not have his 3-to-1 advantage, the idea here was to have the main attack fall on the Tennesseans, right by the swamp, where they'd broken before. Scouts had observed that these were the same troops, so logic said they broke once, if we really push them, they're going to break again. It had been calculated when to do it, because the mist, if you've ever been down there by the river in the early morning, you'll know the mist lies very, very heavy, and of course you can't really effectively fire at anyone unless you can see them. And if the column of attack hugs the swamp line, which is about where the road is now. In fact, if you've ever been down to the Chalmette battlefield, which I'm sure you have, the actual attack point was where the woods are, the treed area right by the railway tracks. The road is really the swamp line, and it was slightly wrongly surveyed a while back, and there is more of the battlefield remaining than they used to think. So the swamp line actually curved in and then out. So if the column followed the swamp, it could get to within about 300 yards of the American line before exposing itself. And even then, with a heavy mist, it wouldn't be too much of a problem to charge in. So one regiment was given the job of collecting ladders and fascines. Fascines, of course, bundles of sticks. Throw those into the Rodriguez Canal, which had been dug out. So that was 12 feet deep. Sorry, that was 6 feet deep, filled with water. When you get across that, you've got a slight bank and then 6 feet of earthworks. Then ladders laid over the fascines and up the earthworks, so that by the time the main column came in, they were supposed to have this temporary roadway that they could storm right across. The column on the river road was supposed to attack the other flank. The idea being, you get hit at both flanks at the same time, and hopefully Jackson will weaken one of the flanks or the other. Probably he will weaken the left flank, because the right flank, the one by the river, was being hit first, and then that diversionary attack will just make the other attack easier. Pakenham had also had a thought about what might happen if there was a delay in getting the troops across the river. And he had decided that he would still have that attack as a diversion, but he would push the 93rd Foot, the Sutherland Highlanders, right across the field, so that they could put their weight behind the main attack on his right, on Jackson's left. So why didn't this happen? All sorts of things went wrong. It's amazing. It's like everything that could go right for the Americans went right. Everything that could go wrong for the British went wrong. Firstly, the way that the troops were being got over the river. Boats were brought in from the fleet and put into the Villeray Canal, which came fairly close to the river, but not right into it. The river, is fairly high, but drops. There are, depending on the time of day and how the tide's doing. At that time, the water level went up and down. The idea was, you put all these boats in the Villeray Canal, you build a dam behind them, at the right time of day, you cut through the levee, water flows out of the river into the canal, it floats the boats into the river, you go out, you cross, you're away. The engineer officer who had that job was Sir John Fox Burgoyne, the illegitimate son of the Revolutionary War British general, Gentleman Johnny. He built the lines of Torres Vedras for Wellington, a wonderful set of defense works that you can still go and see today. On this campaign, he built this one dam. And 20 minutes after the levee was cut, the dam collapsed. So, the water level, which wasn't that much higher in the river, went down because it began to flow out, back up the Villeray Canal, and the boats became mired in the mud as they were crossing the levee. That was the critical point, because the levee goes up and then down again. That extra bit of water went, and with 2 boats in the river, it was then left to sailors and soldiers to try to drag boats across the river. So instead of them going out and getting straight across, it was 3 o'clock in the morning before they could start getting anybody across. The other thing was, trying to think of the chap that was given the job of doing the ladders and fastenings, and I'm just blanking on his name. Colonel of the 44th Foot. Mullins. Captain, Temporary Lieutenant Colonel Mullins. Here's the thing about the 44th. Their colonel at the beginning of this campaign, a fellow called Brooke, had actually been the senior officer when General Robert Ross was killed. So, when Ross died, temporarily, he became the commander of the British Army. When the new commanders came out, he felt it beneath his dignity to act in an inferior capacity, and so he sort of left and went back to England, leaving Mullins, who was the son of Lord Ventry, in this temporary position. He was not very experienced, and frankly, from what he had seen in the earlier battles at New Orleans, he had just completely lost it. He was convinced that he and his entire regiment was going to get wiped out, that this was this was a stupid thing to do, and he did not do what he was told to do. He was told to go and check where all the ladders and fastenings were the night before. He thought he knew exactly where they were, and part of his nervousness was he wasn't going to check anything and nobody was going to tell him anything. So the next morning, when he was sent off to get them, he couldn't find them. And then he started marching down the field. And then eventually his second in command, who knew where they were, or thought he did, brought him back and managed to convince him to come back. They picked up the ladders and fascines, but the attack had already started. Because Pakenham had decided there is no way we can hold this up. We have got to go. Morale is bad. We're all prepared. We're never going to be as prepared as we are now. Let's just go. He went back. He got the ladders and fastenings, but the columns were already moving. To come back, they'd cut across the field. Now they were loaded down with the ladders and fastenings. They couldn't cut back across the field. They had to go by the roads in the field, which was a longer trip. So basically, when